can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Okay. Councillor Rose makes that. Any additions or changes? Councillor Danaka?
On page 32 and 33, says 2019 operating budget should actually be 2020.
Okay. Yep.
So is that an amendment?
No, options. It's right here, still money left in that account.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. Okay, so we'll talk about it when we get to that agenda item. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda items? Is that, no? Okay. All those in favor? It is carried. So we'll get right to our scheduled delegation, and we'll start with victim services. We have this is being recorded for prosperity's sake, so perhaps when you get up, you can turn on the mic and just give your names so that the people in TV land will know who's here.
Hi, I'm Sandra Bembridge. I'm the program manager for the High Prairie District Victim Services.
Staff Sergeant Warren Wright, Detachment Commander, High Prairie Post.
And Scott Stewart, I'm a treasurer with Victim Services.
All right, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for having us here today. We're just here to give you a little bit of information and background of Victim Services and what we offer the community. So Victim Services has been in place since 1996. We're a nonprofit agency, which we are housed in the RCMP detachment. So for our funding, we have to apply for a grant through Justice and Solicitor General. So that's where we get our funding to go forward with our program. Anything extra, we rely on fundraising. So at this point, we're just doing casinos. So we get that once every 3 years. That's helped us to buy a vehicle to use for our support services. And we have one coming up in February here, so we appreciate that. This year we were able to redo our office. So we renovated our office with our casino funds. So for our High Prairie District Victim Services, we provide support to the same area that our CMP do. So it's the 3 settlements, Reserve up to Canuso. And in our unit, we have myself as program manager, Rose Toner is our assistant coordinator, and just this spring we were able to hire through another grant an outreach worker who will be able to go to the communities, the 3 settlements and 1 reserve. We rely on our advocates that volunteer to support and to volunteer their time we have various things. There are some that assist us with the on-call phone and some that can just assist with some of the fundraising and other community events. So with our on-call phone, we're on call 24/7, so 365 days a year. So us as staff members manage that on-call phone with the advocates. So anytime our CMP needed our assistance, whether it's at accident scenes, sudden deaths, to go to the homes, to go to the hospital to assist with sexual assaults, we're able to provide that support. So it's quite a bit that we can provide for the community. Let me just see. And we rely also heavily on our board members like Scott Stewart's been with us for a number of years. At this point we have 6 volunteer advocates, so they're the volunteers that help us manage the phone. And we have 5 board members with an RCMP liaison also assigned that is part of our board. Most of our referrals come from our CMP. We do accept them from different agencies, self-referrals. Typically like right now, we carry a caseload of 320 open files in our office. That's gone up since I've been there up to 450. So it's a pretty busy office. When we get the referrals from our CMP, we will contact the victim. We will update them with court, like when the accused enters their pleas. We'll explain the court process to them. We'll also provide, if needed, if they have to go as a witness to court, we'll provide that support. So especially for kids, it's quite helpful. We'll arrange to work with the Crown Prosecutor where they can meet with the victim before court. We'll take the person to the courthouse, typically on a Friday when there's no court in session. we'll do that court prep then. We can put them up on the stand and just show them what the line of questioning can be, because it's quite different how a Crown prosecutor questions them compared to a defense. So that support is really, really important to just expose them to what they're in for when they have to go to court to testify. At our courthouse, we will accompany them at the time of the trial. Our courthouse is small, and it's very difficult for them to go to court and have to face the accused, the abuser. So we now have a second courtroom. Often we'll take the witness into that courtroom and wait until their turn is to testify. So we'll just communicate with the Crown prosecutor that that's where we're waiting. And often I've even been called up on the stand to stand with the witness to provide that support as they're up on the stand. One thing we're quite happy with is we've just recently been able to access CCTV. So it's really helpful with kids. So instead of them having to go up on the stand, face the abuser, and stand beside the judge, we've been able to sit in the Crown prosecutor's office, and they can provide their testimony through CCTV sitting in that separate room. So that's been really, really helpful. Let's see. So we work closely with other agencies, of course, very closely with RCMP, with the Crown prosecutor, with agencies such as Alberta Works. If a victim needs support financially, it's Alberta Works that would assist in that. They can offer things such as a fleeing abuse benefit when it has to do with domestic violence, because often people don't know where to go, how they're going to manage. Alberta Works has a fleeing abuse benefit where they can help with first month's rent and damage deposit. So in our job, it's just letting victims know what support services are available in our community financially, the mental health support. We do a lot of mental health referrals. What we had found a number of years ago, there wasn't much available specific to sexual assault. So working with the Grand Prairie Sexual Assault Center, they could see the need in the area, and they had started off by providing us one sexual assault therapist that came to High Prairie. So this person is an employee of the PACE Center in Grand Prairie, which the Sexual Assault Center is called. They find a grant and they fund that. They pay for that worker to be here. So we started off with one worker. She was so busy, they put in a second worker. So now we have a worker that works with adults and a worker that works with children. And again, there's no cost to the client. PACE gets the grants. They do all the hard work. They just kindly give us 2 workers here in High Prairie. So they've been quite busy. They both carry wait lists. Now, just about a year ago, we've had a crisis worker join that team. So now we have a trauma worker that is available as well. So if something's happened that can make a referral, that lady can usually see them within a couple of days, just to provide some coping techniques, some strategies to cope with the trauma. So we're so fortunate in our community to have these 3 workers, no cost to us, no cost to the victim. And we've had really, really great feedback. So they did start off as sexual assault therapists, but they've opened that. We have quite a high caseload of domestic violence. So they've opened that when there's been trauma through the domestic violence. They've opened it, so we make referrals for people needing support in that area too. So some of the things when we're called to go assist it with our CMP to a home, we've tried to fill in the gaps when we've seen the need. One of them is if we're gone to a home where there's been a sudden death, there's a booklet that we bring with us, and it's dealing with the loss of a loved one. Because at that time, they don't know what to do, especially if it's an untimely death or a tragic loss. This will give them the direction of calling the coroner's office, getting a hold of the funeral home, even things like the CPP, different things. Everything they need to know is in here. And we also follow up with them quite closely to give direction. But with the loss, that we have no grief therapy here, and that's really difficult. That's one of the harder pieces of our job. We have quite an array of pamphlets that we stock at our office, and we keep in touch with the families that have lost through tragic loss. One of them is understanding a child's grief, getting through the annual reminders of your loss, when death comes unexpectedly. We have probably about 50 topics in our office that we'll pass on to families that need that support. So that's part of that. So when we are providing the support to our CMP, we help them with the emergency protection orders or different types of protection orders. So we can be on call to come in and assist with that. When somebody's fearing for their immediate safety, it's important to have that in place as soon as possible. So with an emergency protection order, we can go in and our CMP will fill out the forms needed. We can get that granted right away. There's just that piece that after that initial protection is put in place, they have to go for a hearing to Court of Queen's Bench in Peace River. So they've been really great with us because if you're in Whitefish or even in High Prairie, to get to Peace River for this hearing is really difficult. So we work with Court of Queen's Bench and we'll arrange that the victim can appear for that hearing by phone. So we work closely. So we look at all our avenues to make things simpler for the victim in any way we can support them. But the emergency protection order is a huge piece to that. Of course, if we're ever called for a sexual assault at the hospital, for an example, we'll be there to provide the emotional support. But during that time when they have to do a rape kit, they take all of the clothing, like they have to take that typically as evidence. So we'll make sure that they have, if family or somebody isn't around to bring them clothing, we have some at the office we can bring, or places like the Friendship Center or the Anglican Church have been really great. We can go there and just pick what we need. So just working with other community services has been very helpful. Of course, taking people to the, like women and children to the shelter. It's very heartwarming to be able to help people in need. When I think of the shelter, there was one time a woman and her kids had to flee during the middle of the night and they showed up on our doorstep. They had no shoes or anything. So we provided the support and we convinced her to try going to a shelter. A lot of time they don't want to, and I was able to convince her just to give it a try. Nobody would make you stay there. So we kept them at the detachment. The statements were made. You could see the kids hadn't eaten. So before we went to the shelter, I just said, you know, let's swing by A&W. We'll get you something to eat. We'll go get you all settled at the shelter. So we got them in there, got them settled, and just as I was leaving, the 12-year-old little boy come running out the door, run down the steps, and he just gave me the biggest hug ever and said, this is the best day ever. You know, it's very heartwarming that the opportunity to help people and help them find the resources that are available in our community when the need is there. So there's some really great support services here. A few other little things we give out. We always have blankets on hand, especially after trauma. We give them out. We'll wrap the person in a blanket, and they find that very comforting. So we always keep blankets on hand. Of course, teddy bears for kids. And we always keep our little rocks, our stones that you can rock them. I've had women come back to me from years ago and say, you know, I still have that stone you gave me. So little things like that go a long way. Well, that's a lot of what we do. I don't know, Warren, you had a little.
That was pretty comprehensive. Yeah. In this day and age, truly our justice system, our legal system is very offender focused. I don't think that comes as a shock to anyone here. Quite often the victim and the victim's rights and needs are secondary to the offenders, and it can be very frustrating for everyone involved. When we get involved in a case, typically we're the investigative body, and we're there for a different purpose than victim services. Victim services is focused on aftercare. I mean, we have a job to do, we do that, but we don't often have time for the humanity part of crime. And that's where victim services comes in and takes over and quite often stays with them until after court even is done. I could tell you countless of stories how victim services has helped me in my career and the different things that I've been involved with people. A lot have to do with people's darkest moments, you know, death, sexual assault, loss, trauma, grief. But you know, like I'm sure everyone in this room has suffered some sort of loss, whether it's a human loss, personal loss, or it's even just somebody stole your son's truck, which happened to me, right? nice having those local people, those friendly people, come in and just spend the time and have the time to listen. Just listen to what people have to say and try to articulate their grief over their loss. And the RCMP don't always know what to say. I still, to this day, if I have to do a sudden death next of kin advisement, I still struggle with the right things to say to people. And that's why it's so important that we bring victim services with us, because if we are struggling, because you only have one shot at it, and if you screw it up, you screw it up big time. It's so important to have victim services there to help. So I'm very grateful for victim services. They've been involved. I've been with victim services since the late 90s, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have the victim services office under Sandra at our detachment. There's 3 workers, which is amazing. And we would be much poorer without them. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we have a really good organization here that we need to recognize.
Well, we're running short on time, but we can take a couple of quick questions if anybody has one. Councillor Gilroy?
When you talked about the grief counseling, have you been able to contact the Palliative Care Society in our community that may be able to work with you? They have had some training, of course they're used to death as well. That may be another option for you, since they're not as busy at the hospital right now with the AHS's policy change.
Right. It could be something we would look at. We just technically don't have like grief therapy. In my days, I used to work in palliative care as their coordinator many years ago, so that's how I knew about the care notes and everything. So we do provide that, but I appreciate that. We'll definitely keep that in mind and maybe explore that in the future. Thanks, Brian.
Councillor Daneka?
Victim Services is a wonderful program. I was involved with that at its inception when it first started here, way back when, with Pauline Dijon, who was the coordinator. And as you said, it's rewarding that you can actually help somebody when they're at their lowest or weakest point, and you can let them see that there's some light at the end of the tunnel and there is support out there. It's a tough gig, because as RCMP, again, you're seeing people at their lowest point who sometimes don't believe that there's any way out. And this service is and has been, from my experience, a godsend to a lot of people in this community. And congratulations that it's still here and it's still going and it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is wonderful to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. We all have a passion for the work that's involved, and it is the team. We have an awesome detachment that we work in. We're governed by a board. Scott's been part of that board for a number of years, and our advocates, so we have a fantastic team. So we really pleased with that. Thank you.
Councillor Rose?
So thanks for coming, Sandra. Part of this was that we had a discussion about all the things that Victim Services did, and I really felt that maybe our council should really have a briefing on that, and especially in light of the fact that the police funding, or the funding in general provincially, is changing. So do you see that is there going to be any effect? Have you seen any effect of it?
We haven't, and I don't know if Scott can talk to.
Well, we're funded. The victims of crime goes to a federal pot, and then it's dished out to the provinces. So there's a lot of money left in the victims of crime fund. So hopefully that will not be part of the cuts that may happen with the provincial government. And again, it is a victims of crime fund. So hopefully we'll not be impacted by that.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Yeah.
And that was mostly it, because we have grants that do come from council as well, right? So that was part of our conversation before, was what if there was ever a need, there is that opportunity to apply for the small amount of money that that the town does have, because I'm sure that would qualify for something that could fall under our grants here. If you, it sounds like you need money for even blankets and things like that. Is that all funded from the
No, with the Solicitor General grant, it's very specific in how we can spend that money, and we're capped at $150,000 a year that we can get. We've had that for a number of years, and we can't ask for more because there's no more to give us. So we've been at that for a number of years. So we were hoping, if anything, we'd see that cap lifted. It was recently lifted for larger areas like Grand Prairie, Slave Lake, who desperately need it, and we're also capped at the 150. So that's been lifted for some of those areas. Right now we're managing okay, but you're right, we do get some donations, and through our fundraising we can get things like the teddy bears, blankets, even an occasional meal. There are supports in the community to cover those, but sometimes we're just not in a position to access those supports, so it comes out of our fundraising.
Do you feel like there's any opportunity or there's a need for communication? The people that need the service obviously get I've seen people get a first-time call often, right? And then you guys are the next call from them. But is there an opportunity for communication in the community that you think that piece needs to be there, or that the people that need the service are actually finding it? There's not. I guess what I'm saying is, you were saying that there's some opportunity for counseling for, you've got counselors from Grand Prairie that are coming here, that if there was a need, I know, I guess you didn't say that you don't have grief counseling, but what was I thinking, that there was,
Police supplies, free workers.
yeah, well, some opportunity for people may reach out if they knew that there was the service there, right? So the domestic violence, is it always a police call, or would it be somebody that would directly ever call you guys?
We get the direct calls, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're seeing that more and more, whether it's through an agency or just through themselves, they can come in and access that. And now that they put that crisis worker in place, she's available. She doesn't do the long-term therapy, but if you need 3 sessions just to help, and that's where the grief piece is helpful, she can step in. So that's been a great support.
Is there the opportunity to refer beyond that? For the mental health piece, or they only have the 3 sessions?
What she would do is she would offer that crisis, and then if she saw the need to go farther, then she would refer to one of the 2 therapists. The thing is, now they both have quite lengthy waiting lists. And we do have our local mental health office. We just have heard that people are on the waiting list for months and months. It's such a lack of, I'm not sure where the lack is, but people aren't getting the support they need typically from mental health. Occasionally we hear a positive story, but more than not, they're on a waiting list for months.
No, we've heard that lots, yeah.
Councillor Long.
Thank you for coming. Aside from advocating on behalf of victim services, what can we do as a council, as a town, to help?
Oh, that's so sweet of you to ask. At this point, we just wanted, in talking to Debbie, there's so much that we can offer. And I think for today, we just really wanted to inform you of what the unit does for the community members. But thank you. If there's something, we might be back. But for now, like I say, it was just an important piece, because we really do have a great program running, and just for everybody to be aware of what's available in our community.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Well, I'd like to echo what everybody else has said and say thank you. It's a great service for our community, and you guys do wonderful work. I've known people that you've helped, and just, thank you for all that you do. It's wonderful, and thanks for coming in.
Business card?
Yeah. What's that? Oh, so So yes, you guys can come up here, right? Yeah. All right, I just put the slide over the, so it's still on, I just put the slide over. Right on top, yeah, I thought I could reach it. Oh, did it turn itself off? Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you should be able to see it, I think. Well, welcome and thanks for coming down. I'll let you guys introduce yourself, and I'll just give a little bit of a quick introduction before when they're coming to talk about the, remember we were talking about a possible online visitor information center and working with the county on that. That's what they want to come in and talk about. So I'll turn it over to you two.
Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Victoria Zahatzi. I'm the Communications Coordinator with Big Lakes County, and this is Bronte Collette. She is our Communication Administrative Assistant. And like Brian said, we're here to talk to you today about the Big Lakes Regional Tourism website and logo. Okay, so to start, we're going to be talking about our vision for this website. Over the past several months, I've had the pleasure of working with a couple of you from High Prairie, as well as our colleagues from Swan Hills on our ICFs. And what this project showed me was just how much stronger our municipalities are when we work together. High Prairie and Big Lakes County have a list of over 20 services that we collaborate on, and that ensures that we are that much more equipped to serve our community. And I've witnessed firsthand how this relationship has allowed us to deliver more effective and efficient services. I know that this project is still ongoing, but one of the things that we talked about was tourism, because together we have a lot to offer, both to our residents and to our visitors. So we want this regional tourism website to be a driving force for innovative and collaborative tourism in our area. We want it to pave the way for a stronger, more competitive tourism industry in the north. And through this website, we want to be able to provide the public with a strong combined voice that is better equipped to attract more visitors, generate more economic activity, and create more jobs across our region. So with that said, I'm going to go over a bit of our thought processes while conceptualizing this vision. When we began the process of creating a logo, we looked at other tourism and travel logos from around Alberta and across the world. What we found was that there wasn't really a right or a wrong way to go about doing this. As you can see, some of these logos are very abstract, and some of them pull from their natural surroundings. So the next step was to put together a visual board that incorporated all the elements we thought were important to include. First and foremost, we wanted our logo design to reflect both the partnership of our 3 municipalities and our beautiful landscapes. We did this by drawing inspiration from each municipality's logos, so the wheat, the grizzly, and the sunset. And in the end, we wanted to unite these in some way, and we settled on a crest. So the final mock-up, I think, reflects each of these goals and keeps the design sleek and modern. I've included an example of both the primary logo and alternate logos that can be used on various promotional materials. It's sometimes hard to visualize what a logo is going to look like in use, so I've included a couple mock-ups. This is just like a business card, some stationery, and then a mock-up of a travel guide. So like what Bronte said, the idea behind the tourism website is really to incorporate everything that visitors can see and do in all 3 municipalities and put that in one place. So we really want this website to be visually appealing, user-friendly, and most importantly, have the most current and up-to-date information on it. So this is an example of what we would like our website to look like. So as you can see right on the home page, the visitor will be able to click on where to stay, where to eat, things to do, as well as events that are happening in our region. Also, when talking to the municipalities, what was really important is making sure that this website links back to the main municipalities' websites. So that's something that we are also going to be doing. So this is an example of the Slave Lake Regional Tourism website. So as you can see at the bottom, you have the town of Slave Lake, Sawridge, and Lesser Slave River. And when you click on those logos, it brings you right back to their website. So that's what we're going to do with this tourism website as well. Any questions? Yeah.
Councillor Daneka?
I can see in your logo mock-up, like, obviously the paw is for Swan Hills because they're the bear.
Yes.
The sun in the whatever lake is for Big Lakes. To me, that
The wheat?
Chief of Wheat?
it's not a wheat, chief. It's a leaf.
Okay.
Fair enough. I mean, it doesn't quite look like a wheat.
No, it's if you want to incorporate the 3 logos, to me it just looks like a leaf. If you can try and maybe
A branch with leaves.
Yeah.
work on that to make it look more like a, you know, like in our logo we have the wheat sheaf above. If we can get it to look more like a wheat sheaf, I think that would be better. Then to me anyway, to me it just looks like a leaf.
Okay. Oh, for sure.
But the concept, I like the concept. I think that's it. It has potential to be very beneficial to all of the partners involved and to the region itself. So yeah, carry on. It's great.
Councillor Rose?
Thanks for the clarity. Part of them coming here stemmed out of an ICF meeting where we were unclear as to what this website was really all about, whether it was an individual county-based website or showing the fact that it really was truly a joint venture. But Councillor Daneka, do you feel like that? Are you happy? One of the conversations that came up in our ICF was, should it be the wheat? I agree with you that maybe doesn't demonstrate, you know, it's not a clear representation of wheat. But do you think that that's what that it should be? I mean, I know this is at this point it's nothing's approved or passed. This is just a conceptual idea. But we were thinking, does that actually bring out tourism? Like, is your first instinct that it should be just like pieces of the logo, or should it actually be something different?
Well, I think if you're like, it's Big Lakes, it's Swan Hills, and it's us. I mean, Swan Hills is a bear, so yes, you can see the bear paw. Big Lakes County is the lake and the sun, and I mean, our logo is just a name, but it has that wheat sheaf on it. So, I mean, if you're going to make it for all 3 municipalities, then I think that needs to be more of a wheat sheaf because that's part of our rebranding.
Right.
So I think it needs to be more of a wheat sheaf than a leaf. That's just my opinion.
You can steal our wheat sheet, cut and paste it.
Councillor Gilroy?
Realizing that a good portion of our traffic in town, as well as a lot of the big events we have, are related to First Nation and Métis, how have they responded to overtures? Because, for example, we are the first one to have the powwow. We have the round dance. We have a whole bunch of other things that they do. How have they embraced it, since it's considered to be a regional tourism?
I think so far this has just been a discussion that was born out of the ICF between High Prairie and Big Lakes County. So yeah, for right now, that's just what it has been so far. But of course, those events that are happening in High Prairie, like the powwows and stuff, those will be on the website. Yeah.
No other questions?
Just one statement.
Oh, okay.
I really like it. It's really nice to see it come together and how wide you've been looking at it. And clearly you've spent a lot of time and a lot of serious time trying to make this work, because we certainly didn't know where we needed to go. So thank you for directing us in that direction. Keep up the great work, and boy, you've come such a long way in this town.
Yeah, and I think that's important that, you know, like I said, when we had that first discussion about a new look for a visitor information center, we weren't sure what it was going to be. This really gives us a better idea of what it would look like and how it could function, and I think it would be really good. Today, people are looking on their phones more than they're going to a physical spot, so this will be great to give this an opportunity to grow and see how it works. All right.
One more thing I'll just share for Councillor Gilroy. We did have this discussion at the ICF meeting with Brent as well, and he's already had a conversation with Charmaine, and she's...
Brent is Charmaine.
So Brent is, I don't know his last name. What's Brent's last name? He works for the county.
Okay.
Brett Hawken.
Yeah, he's the intern there, and he's been working on this project. And Charmaine is Charmaine Larson out of Sucker Creek, and she holds a board position with Indigenous tourism through Travel Alberta. I think it's sort of linked through Travel Alberta. So the conversation's already been there as far as trying to build that relationship.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming down and sharing that.
Thanks for having us.
It's probably better than having Brett down here. All right, and I know Lindsay's been waiting patiently, so we'll get Lindsay to come up. Lindsay, I know, is coming in as a public delegation, not as a scheduled delegation. Yeah, yeah, but I'm just sort of calling Lindsay because Lindsay's got her child here, and I can tell she's
Really excited to be here.
Yeah, yeah. And I did tell her that it would probably be, about 7:15. So thank you for being patient. And she's here to talk about the Children's Resource Council. I'd asked her to come down and share a little bit about what she shared with me, so everybody on council will know some of the challenges coming to the Children's Resource Center.
So with government changes recently,
I'll get you to turn your mic on.
Is that better?
That's way better. Thank you.
So with changes to children's services and the implementation of the new framework, they have redrawn potential maps and basically are ending current contracts around prevention and early intervention, which includes ParentLink and our Stronger Together program, as well as the Big Lake Smoky River Children's Coalition. And we are to reapply under the new Family Resource Network framework. So potentially, it's a much larger jurisdiction. I'm on the phone constantly trying to negotiate partnerships with Slave Lake and Wabasca because they will now be in our jurisdiction. We are going to apply as a hub because of the fantastic facility that we have here. Currently, Smoky River has been on board with us for the last 7 years, so we're hoping that they're good to continue with that. So the hub and smoke model that we're looking at is High Prairie being the hub, which is kind of, if you look, I'll leave some copies with you. It's not a given the map, just because of our size. But because of the infrastructure that we have around just our building and in terms of the framework, we've done all of these services at some point, and so implementation would be quite easy for us. So we're hoping that we can establish partnerships with Slave Lake, Wabasca, Desmarais to apply for this hub and spoke model where High Prairie would be the hub. The current spoke that's Smoky River would have its own kind of standalone office, I guess, if you will. We already have a toy library there, but we're just using the Elks Hall right now for programming and just kind of paying rent. But what we would be able to do under the new framework is actually have stable staffing and those kinds of things in that area, as well as Slave Lake and Wabasca to a shorter degree. Just because Big Stone is such a huge provider of programming in the area. So this is an open competition, so there's no guarantees. And for our programming, Children's Services funding is almost 70% of our current funding framework. Our federal funding was untouched. We are locked in for another 4 years. They were locked in prior to the election, so as far as I know, it had nothing to do with that. So those federal programs are stable, but we have to apply under the new framework. So what I'm asking of you guys is your support. So I've kind of got some outline that I'll leave with Brian, just in terms of a letter of support for this hub and spoke model, where the Children's Resource Council would present itself as the hub and base site for these services in the area. Initially with ParentLink, Slave Lake Wabasca kind of got a raw deal. They didn't get a full ParentLink center. They were kind of given satellite centers but didn't have a hub. They've done really, really well. Currently our Health Canada programming is in their ParentLink, so we're hoping that just because of the time constraints of submitting, that they're interested in partnership for at least the next 3 years. So again, we're just looking for a letter of support right now, and just some advocacy on our behalf, not just in the town or in the county, but with other local municipalities. So far though, they have still excluded Slave Lake from our, not Slave Lake, rather Swan Hills from our model. We're not really sure how that works, but normally in these frameworks, they're part of Fox Creek Whitecourt. That's the only thing that hasn't changed. We've always shared a Children's Services region with Slave Lake Wabasca, but we haven't had to, I guess, build a framework with them. We've been able to build our own framework with Smoky River, but potentially this is what Children's Services is looking for. So I guess that's it. If you have any questions, I'll leave. We did do a media release today, so I forwarded that to you in the radio station, and I can leave that with you as well.
Councillor Long?
Having two little grandsons that have had the opportunity to enjoy your services, and a mom who really appreciated it, you guys have done a great job. Is there wording that you would like us to use in the letter of support? Because certainly we can make the motion, but if there's something that you want us to actually advocate within that letter, would you be able to sit down with Brian and Brian?
Yeah, for sure. Like I've identified some areas, but kind of what I'm leaning towards, and I'll have to finish my discussions with Slave Lake Wabasca to see if they're comfortable, is in kind of, just because we don't have a lot of time to come up with this, ideally you get the partners in place, you guys come up with a model, like it's a long process. Previously we've had, on much smaller competitions, 3 to 6 months to prepare. There's been a series of government information sessions, that kind of thing. We don't have any of that. We can't, we do have a few Q&A sessions coming up, but we don't really have a dialogue with Children's Services in terms of what they're looking for. So I guess on the table, if they're comfortable, would be us kind of drafting based on the EOI what that partnership would look like, right, so that both the letters and the framework match up.
Exactly.
Because ideally that's what they're looking for. I think the thing that makes us most competitive is not only that we've been doing this for 25 years, if you can believe it. It's 25 years here. But also that we have clear programming in all designated areas. And one thing to identify too is this is an expansion of the framework from early childhood to 0 to 17. So we would be able to reenact some of the tenets of our Brighter Futures Next Steps program, which was discontinued under this framework, and we have a model. It's not like we're starting from scratch on any of this. So our idea would be, and I'm hoping it would be helpful to communities who are not prepared, is to say, okay, we'll start with this and then make it your own as we over the next 3 years, but at least we have the evidence-based theory, we have the training, we have this is what you can offer at this time, and it's all relevant to the framework. So we're lucky that way, we're not starting from scratch.
Okay.
But it is open competition, so.
So just going to that letter, have you had mentioned a template, or have you got anything
Well, I'm
more?
going to leave this with Brian, but if I am able to finish discussions with Slave Lake Wabasca this week, and Smoky River, if everyone's comfortable, it would be, I think, in everyone's best interest to have the letter clearly identify, I guess, the intricacies of collaboration, whether it's with FCSS or in Slave Lake if it's with ParentLink, or how that kind of works. For the town at this time, it would be collaboration with FCSS and basically with all services provided. So from the town of High Prairie specifically, it would just be like a letter of support, because a lot of those services fall under the county.
Okay, do you think it'd be better to wait until all of like you said, you're meeting with Slave Lake and Wabasca this
Well, I'd
week?
like to leave this with Brian first off,
Okay.
just to see what he thinks. And once I'm finished discussions, hopefully by the end of this week, I can let him know, okay, this is kind of where everybody else wants to go.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with that? And then proceed. Basically, I'm coming to you just to say, will you support us in this bid? And I think it would be really great for High Prairie to be a hub, especially with a region as big as we have. And I'm hopeful that at least for the next 3 years, we can count on the other partners to sign on as well.
When do you need the letter of support by?
My timeline is pretty crazy. I'd probably need it by the end of the month. They haven't given us a lot of time, so I have until Christmas to draft. And then I want to be able to give at least 7 to 10 business days to each partner to review the entire framework and make any changes, and then I have to deliver it in person on the 14th of January.
Okay, so I'm just trying to think, we have another council meeting coming up on the 26th. Is that going to work for you, or is that too late? Or
Yeah, if I can get a commitment that you guys are definitely in support of us doing this, even if it's just verbally, then I can move forward when I go into negotiations with other municipalities, saying the town of High Prairie is behind us. Hopefully I'm sure the county will be behind us, and just kind of move forward that way.
Yeah.
And then we can work out the intricacies of the letter. But specifically to the town, there is no real, there would be no real shared services or anything like that. We would be offering this service for the town at no cost or anything like that. So that's kind of why I'm here, is just to kind of identify that you're in support.
I had Brian. Councillor Gilroy.
Well, actually, the mayor sort of took a little bit on it there. I was going to ask the deadline, because in order to give you a letter of support, it has to go through a motion, I believe, of council. And so we need the full package to be able to decide upon it and get it done. So that's why I was asking when we could see it at the earliest.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't give us a lot of time. And it's quite an extensive document. That's why I was kind of hoping to have the partners in place and them identify the services that they're currently offering and how I can figure out how that fits within this model. But again, when it comes to the town of High Prairie, I don't think it's as complex as that, because currently we're offering the services. Right. So it's not anything new other than expansion and High Prairie being the hub. So for the sake of simplicity, I could work with Brian on something that identifies your support of High Prairie being the hub and the continuation and expansion of services for High Prairie and area.
Councillor Rose.
So the expansion of services, Lindsay, that's, you said you've already built a relationship with FCSS. So the FCSS board is part, like the town is part of that, so
Yeah.
Judy and I sit on that board as well. I don't remember anything being discussed with Nicole about, I mean, I know that she was looking at some teen programs, and then they've got some after-school programs in some of the hamlets.
Yeah, so currently we're actually working with FCSS in all the communities. This can be looked at as a way to accentuate current services. So identify, and I have had discussions with the CAO with the county. He was going to bring it to her to see how she felt. But there's no, and the same with Smoky River, they already have a youth coordinator and those kinds of things. So these services wouldn't operate in any kind of duality, but work together. So if mental health is a piece, or resiliency is a piece that is missing, these services can accentuate that as long as they're under the framework.
So you're just still working on how that would look with FCSS?
Well, basically, our Brighter Futures Next Steps program operated for 6 years with no impact to them. We were doing something quite different. And it was around mental health, capacity building. It was around healthy weights and nutrition, healthy relationships. We did programs at the junior high and high schools in the area, as well as the outreach school. Not just peer relationships, but home relationships and relationships with partners and what that looks like. So the services are quite different, and they are from a children's services perspective rather than a community development perspective. So it's not about just offering activities for the sake of keeping people busy. And there's a lot of good workshops that they provide that would accentuate our services in terms of budgeting and those kinds of things. So we have partnered in the past. And so I don't think, if that program is basically the tenets of what we're trying to deliver here under this framework. We operated for about 6 years, and there was no issues. I don't think you can have too much of these services in the area, and being that the number of families involved with children's services in our area, a number of youth going through our justice system right now, and the issues that the schools are having because they can only do what they can between their daytime hours. These services can offer programming after hours and weekends and in the home, because home visitation is a huge part of this framework. So implementing our Stronger Together program on a regional scale would be extremely, I think, beneficial to all the communities. But that's the thing, is we would for sure make sure that that piece about duality would be in the contract, as well as partnerships and exploring new opportunities together instead of in silos.
I love the idea that that you guys can work more collaboratively. It's been a challenge already, and it is sort of a missing piece in the community. So I think that
we've had great relationship with FCSS. Like, if it wasn't for them in surrounding communities, especially Jussard, Fost, all those areas, we wouldn't even have access to deliver services, because they have the facilities and that they know the families and all that kind of thing. But to say that to go in and just focus on 0 to 5 is rather difficult when families are made up of people of all sorts of ages. And we also have a lot of teen parents, so where do they fit? This way, we can kind of avoid a lot of those lines and those boundaries and come up with something that focuses on the family and whatever that looks like in that community.
Okay, I'm going to have to draw a line under it just because of time.
Yeah.
But
I will leave this.
Yeah, thanks, and we will definitely, once you get that nailed down, we can work with you in getting a letter of support for that. And just for your information, I've already sort of gave the heads up to Mayor Warman about this. They weren't really aware of it either from their point of view, but at least it's on their radar, and they know that it might be coming to them also, or for a heads up. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for being so patient.
Yep. All right, we got a couple other, Ross. All right.
Mossberger.
Do you want to hit your microphone?
Last meeting I came in here and I was asking for the operations of how to get a file number, I believe it was. And when I submitted it to the front there, they gave me a file number for it, but they didn't really answer the question, and anything that pertained to that was totally offset. I don't understand it. Okay, all I'm looking for are the file numbers from the past complaints regarding Mr. Martinson's house on 55th Avenue. Okay, then he came back and he said he bought it from a little old man, I believe, after I was gone here. And Mr. Long knows that is not the house we are talking about. We are talking about the one with the business. And then he came up and he says, oh, well, Mr. Albert, Archie Grover gave his daughter a license, okay? Which is true, but not for that building where he moved into. He told me, in his own words, he purchased it at an auction through the town of High Prairie. Now, this piece of land was never owned by the auction, or it was never owned by High Prairie or anything. My taxes kept going up. I inquired, and to this day, I still cannot get any answers. I cannot see any paperwork of why my taxes would go up when his places did not, or the other ones in my area.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, your question, you want to see about a house that was purchased. You want information on a house that was purchased.
I want the file numbers for the complaints that I put in regarding the dogs on the street and the illegal business that was owned by Mr. Martinson, where later he gave his daughter business licenses to carry on, where the bylaw came in and knew that there was nobody living there and nothing has happened. But my taxes increased every time, okay? As a reward or more of a disciplinary action.
Okay, so your complaint is, just so I'm clear, you want to have file numbers for your complaint in the past about
complaints
about a dog and about.
No, I'd like to have the complaints from the other ones. Okay.
Okay.
For all the dog complaints that I did. Okay. Now looking at his file numbers, that only one person is allowed to give out. Is that uncommon?
Well, I just want to get into that. Let's get down to what you want then.
The file numbers where I phoned the bylaw department and complained regarding dogs on 55th Avenue, my street. One of them was Brian Martinson's that I found out later. The complaints that I put in for that business on the street and all the pictures that I submitted to council, okay, of the illegal parking and what was going on with the business, and nothing became of it. You guys had in-camera meetings regarding this. And this seems to be just going back to exactly what happened in 2012 when you guys were voted in here to clean the area.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
now, okay, so I'm sorry.
We're tight on time, so I just want to be clear so that we can move on. But okay, you want the file numbers. And I believe you came in, did you not get some file numbers? I was understood.
One for the one that I placed.
Okay.
Which brought up a bunch of more questions.
Okay, so you have new questions about the dogs?
No, I'm still waiting for that. Okay? My new question is, when I took a picture of town employees that I've emailed 3 councillors here and seemed to get a very quick, good response, thank you very much. I'd like to know who that person was who was yelling and screaming. Now, apparently, the bylaw officer doesn't know because they don't know. This is a town employee yelling and screaming and making accusations.
You're
And this-
changing topics here. You're really difficult to follow.
Okay,
So
okay.
just stop. You just wanted the complaints. You had brought up before an issue about the going back, and you called me a liar the last time, and you were given a letter that showed that we had tried to deal with you back then.
Yeah, but I didn't call you a liar, but if I did, I'm sorry. But
You did.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
fine.
and we don't want to get down that road again, because the
enough.
letter proved that we did try to deal with that before.
Right, but I
And
was
it's-
recorded, and you guys said no, so it's a gray area. I'm willing to meet with you, okay? There's no problem. There should be paperwork that shows why my taxes went up, okay?
Wait.
Pardon me?
Wait,
With your new home?
No, my old one.
we're not going, well, if you have an issue with taxes back then, it should have been addressed then. I
No,
don't
well,
know.
the issue is, how come you guys did nothing to it, and you always looked, okay? But I can see why, because of the election and the way it works, okay? So, let's move on from that there. Can I get those file numbers for those complaints? They should all be listed and logged, okay?
Yes.
The next question is, how come I'm getting, I filed a complaint regarding the, Erica, who says that they don't keep complaints. Everything seems to be on paper, and the office will be full of paper, which is a bullshit lie. Excuse my language. Okay.
Oh, wait. You don't come in here and start telling us that people are lying and feeding bullshit.
No, I want to get it straightened out
You don't
because
come
that's the way I
here
feel.
and-
Okay.
That may be how you feel, sir. But the fact of the matter is, the people that work here are dedicated. They're good staff. They're good people.
Okay.
And they don't deserve
Okay.
to have you sitting there saying they're liars.
Okay. Good. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
good.
Okay.
We're
So when
good.
they're lying, okay, if they're caught lying, what is the punishment?
I tell you what, I'm done listening to you.
See, there we go again. Okay, so
Okay, let's-
so, hey,
Hey,
this is
hold
thank
on,
you.
you guys. Let's stop. Okay?
He's in deep.
Let's stop here. If you want a meeting one-on-one, I will meet with you, and we'll bring on another counselor, and we can try to get to this, because we're not getting anywhere here. You're running back and
little.
forth, and we can try for that.
I would
And
really appreciate that. But I
Okay.
would also like to know why my complaints for the officers, the peace officers, aren't being listed either.
Can I ask you one question, Ross?
Yes.
So every time you've made a complaint, they've written it up and they've given you a copy of that, right?
No.
So when you made the complaints, what's happened?
It has come here, it has gone to
so
him.
So you made a complaint to the
Verbally.
police office? Verbally, so you've never written
I've made written complaints on your website, okay?
And that generated a number, right?
No, it exactly pushed the button to enter, and that was it. I get no
So
copy.
you just would like the list of numbers from all the complaints, basically?
My file numbers, yeah, so I can go back and I can say, hey, what did you do on this one?
Okay.
Okay, and I really would like to have
Yeah.
that meeting, please.
Yeah, we can do something maybe with you.
Thank you.
Okay. One more delegation.
This is
Mr. Wade.
do some work, eh?
All right, I'm James Weigel. Some of you might not know that. Before I get to my main point tonight, I want to thank council for providing the time to the general public to appear before you with our concerns. You're not required to provide this time to us, and I appreciate your continuing to do so. Even when some of the concerns brought to you in this format are completely off base, ridiculous, and basically a waste of your time. By providing us with this time, you really do open up the process for everyone to participate. And as we saw with Lindsay from Children's Resource Center tonight, this time can be put to good use. My main point is about the old hospital site here in town. I know you all share my concern that this property has become a massive eyesore and a danger to the public. The fire that was started inside did quite a bit of damage, $250,000 if I remember the numbers from the paper correctly. And if it wasn't for the ladder truck that the fire department has being able to drown the flames from above, this number would have been higher. As it was, they had to spend a long time just searching the building for possible victims, right? Yeah. Clearly, the fence around the building is not a deterrent, and the cement blocks at the entrance are only preventing emergency vehicles from accessing the property quicker. Action must be taken now to ensure that this building is demolished before this time next year. I'm asking that the town work together with the County of Big Lakes as well as our First Nations and Métis Nation neighbors to put all the pressure possible on the provincial government to do the right thing and take this building down. The fact that the demolition was not included in the price of the new hospital is, in my opinion, a gross oversight. This building was never going to be repurposed due to maintenance issues and asbestos, and to think otherwise was foolish. Thank you for allowing me to come before you tonight.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in, James, and you are right. Council is very aware of the old hospital, and I can say for the last couple of years I've been pushing hard to get that, working with the province to try and get it demolished, and we will be continuing to pressure them. And I know the chief has given us some more good information to take and about the dangers in there, and we are well aware of the vandalism and the hazards in there, so we are lobbying on that behalf, I can let you know, and we will continue to do that.
If you remember, Brian, during the election campaign, I told you that during this term, you had 2 jobs. Get the college built, it's almost there, and get the hospital tore down. So I'm glad to hear you guys are working on it, and look forward to seeing a very large green space there.
Love to see it too. Councillor Gilroy.
Just a question of, do you think it would help, Mr. Wakel, if we had, say, an extra petition from the citizens and or businesses that would help the council to actually have names attached to it as opposed to just us advocating? Because sometimes when you have a larger group of names and things like that, it does work a little better.
Anything to get that thing taken down. If that's what needs to be done, then sure. Let me guess, your next thing is, will you spearhead that, Mr. White?
Actually, I was not going to say that.
No, but you're thinking it.
No, I was asking a question of protocol. And if someone, whether it is our council or if it's the Chamber of Commerce or public citizens or whoever want to start it, I just want to know if you think that would be something that would, because someone here listening to us on the internet may want to start that. So I'm not laying it into your ball court there.
Very
I'm
kind
saying
of you.
anybody who would like to do it, would that make a difference? And it sounds like you're saying yes, it would.
I think it would. I don't think having a petition for something like that has got any sort of negative implications to it at all. I don't think you'll find more than 2 people in town that think that building should be anything but rubble. You know, the big thing we all know, it's the asbestos. It's in there. What's the bill? 8 million at least.
That was their estimate, yeah.
For now, next year it'll be 10, and then it'll be 12. It doesn't get cheaper. If you got to take a big pill, take it as soon as you can. Get it over with.
It's a tough sell with the government right now, I can tell you that. But we're working on it, and we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep on it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And if you can get a petition going, or somebody out there wants to get one, we will use that also. Any tools that we can use, we will try. Believe me, that's one of our top strategic plans, is to get that demolished.
I'll see what I can coordinate.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Brian Gilroy.
The other Brian. And not the one beside me either.
Yeah.
My brother.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Okay, moving on. Can I get a motion regarding the fire chief's report? Councillor Rose.
Council received the fire chief's October 2019 report for information.
All right, anything you want to highlight, or just willing to take questions?
Willing to take questions. Fire away.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Long.
A little fire humor. I only have one question, and I didn't have a chance to address it with you beforehand, so I apologize. Mr. Halcrow spoke to me the other day his son was in an accident on the curve up by Peavine, I guess.
Yes.
And when the fire department arrived, the occupants were out of the car. They received a $3,500 vehicle extrication bill from the fire department. Is that common? If the people weren't in the vehicle, they were already out, there was nobody to extricate. Just wondering.
The bylaws, well, the fire services bylaw allows us to charge for services. And basically it's based on the time when the vehicles leave the hall. That's what I've been going on. And basically time that they're out of service. So it's providing service. And in that instance, although extrication was not provided, we also needed to do highway traffic control. It was on a corner. RCMP were tied up with other duties, so that falls on our responsibility to do. So.
Then should there not be another cost center as opposed to an vehicle extrication bill? It should have been something other than, because that's where his concern is, that it wasn't a vehicle extrication, but that's what the fee was for. So is there something else that you could, a different label or a different cost line, traffic control, whatever?
The bill was not identified as vehicle extrication. The bill was identified as responding to a motor vehicle collision.
Okay.
And again, I'm going on the fees that have been established by the council here. And it's based on an hourly rate. So if council feels that those rates should change, then I guess I take direction from you guys.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And I just said to him that I would bring it up, and that's the answer is good. So thank you. And again, I apologize.
Maybe Trevor, you can provide a copy of the invoice to Councillor Long, and he can take it up with Mr. Elcrow.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
I had a question. I know that for the hospital fire that was invoiced out at $33,000. Have we received payment for that?
I think you'll be holding your breath to receive payment for that. I've submitted it to the office, and whether or not AHS will follow through with that, I honestly can't say what the success rate will be of collection. I have heard that it is going through insurance, and if it is going through insurance, then the likelihood is high. But outside of that, I can't speak from experience to say that it's going to be definitely coming in or not.
Okay, no.
Again, on that's billed out on an hourly rate, and you can say, well, the vehicle just brought a bunch of people to the fire scene. Do we change the services for that? If you are going out in a service call as a tradesperson and you only use a set of pliers, do you change your rate? So I guess that's a question that is legitimate, that could be asked, and to be thought about, I guess. But I'm hoping they do pay, yes.
I was just wondering. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye. Let us know if they do.
Okay.
Or and if they don't, we can bug them a little bit too.
Yeah. I did send you the response from Fire Commissioner's office, and it wasn't a definite, these are the bad things that they're doing, but he did have some suggestions for us to pursue. I have sent a letter to Tom O'Maro, who is the property manager, and I have yet to hear back from him, so I'm waiting.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we got, just for everyone else, we got a list of some of the concerns when he was in before, so we got that list, and then there was some concerns from the fire investigator. But the fire investigator's concerns were pretty much the same concerns that you had already brought up, right? There wasn't anything different in there, but it came from another source, so there's two people echoing the same concerns. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, yeah, thank you. So seeing no questions, we have a motion to receive for information. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to our minutes from October 22nd, our regular meeting of council. Can I get a motion? I'll look this way this time. Oh, seeing nothing there. Going back to Councillor Rose.
The council approved the minutes from the October 22nd, 2019 regular meeting of council as presented.
Okay, any changes, additions, deletions needed here? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Our October 21st special meeting of council. Councillor Danaka.
I make a motion that council approve the minutes from the October 21st, 2019 special meeting of council as presented.
All right, any additions, changes, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Our October 29th special meeting of council. I'll make the motion that we that we approve the minutes from the October 29th, 2019 special meeting of council as presented. Any changes for that one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Any questions people have from that? All right, moving on then to new business, 8.1, library board appointment. Okay, go ahead.
That council appoint Miss Rose Toner of to the High Prairie Library Board for a 3-year term ending October 24th, 2022.
All right. Any questions on this one? Pretty so there's only one. It'd be pretty easy to decide, I think. Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
In the past, we've questioned how long a person can be appointed consecutively on this board. Is this within that parameter? Because we did have concerns about a previous person who we felt had served far beyond the mandate. So is there anything in their constitution?
I think they're allowed, if my memory serves me, they're allowed two 3-year terms, and then they can apply again, but that's a special appointment, I guess you want to call it. So.
And this is the second term, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor? Carried. Moving to the community poverty simulation, 8.2. Councillor Rose.
That council approve any council that can attend the community poverty simulation being held in High Prairie on November 20th, 2019.
Any discussion? I'm curious who would be able to go, or is interested in
I'm
going.
already booked in to go, so I can't vote in that sense. I'm through the Aboriginal Interagency. I'm committed to go. I just have to actually go online and put it in.
So there's one's going.
We have a book to go, and I had thought about it, but
Yeah, okay. So might have a couple there, which is good. All right. So any other comments on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Item 8.3, organizational review. Councillor Rose.
that council forward $20,000 to the 2020 budget deliberation with funds to be used for partial organizational review, including the recreational department.
Okay. got two, Councillor Gilroy, Councillor Tanaka, then Councillor Stenhouse. So we'll go in that order.
She was first. Councillor Stenhouse was first.
Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
I'll go back.
Okay, so, my question is, so we go through this, organizational structure, what are we gonna do with these recommendations? Are we gonna follow through with, so somebody audits it, does a recommendation, what are we gonna do with this? When this report is done, what are we gonna do with it?
Well, I would suggest that we would take a look at all of those recommendations and implement them where we can. I mean, that's the purpose of doing it.
So if some of the suggestions were that we're overstaffed in certain departments, are we gonna get rid of staff?
That's not really up to us, but I think it would be something that our CAO would have to consider. Absolutely. Councillor Tanaka?
We've discussed this issue on more than one occasion. I think 2 or 3 times in the past. And to my knowledge, one has never been done. I think this is, even though the cost could be a little high, but number one, at least we'll know. Number two, with the way the budgets are coming down from the government, and what's being cut and what's available, it may force us to really look at our spending and try and, I guess, get a better handle, not that we don't have a handle, but a better understanding of where we could possibly trim if we need to. I'm not saying that all jobs or however this review is going to pan out, that jobs are on the line. I don't want to make it sound like that, but I think as a council, I think we really need to know the staffing quotient that we have.
Okay. Councillor Gilroy?
I have been, as you know, probably pushing this more than anybody else about an organizational review, especially as we've had the extra staffing. I do have a concern, and I'm sure you'll be able to tell me right away. Will the people who will be hired to perform this have any connection to anybody in our town? Is number one. And two, will we be able to see hopefully the three different proposals, so that we as council can go over it to find the most appropriate one, I guess. And the last one would be, since I can't count, I said 2, but there's 3. The last one would be, yes, is it going to be any teeth? Otherwise, if we're just putting another booklet together to throw on a shelf to get dusty, we're wasting $20,000. So.
This is just my thoughts, is this would not be just another document to put on a shelf. That's the same concern you had. Number 2, would this be a tie to anybody? I think this would, because of the costs involved, we'd have to put it out for a tender, review the tenders, make a selection, and pick whichever vendor we wanted to go with. Sure. I mean, like you said, we talked about this, and this price was just a number that was given at AUMA, right? It was a ballpark to say, okay, here's a number that you can start thinking about. So it's, do we want to do it? This is what we need to spend.
My concern about being transparent this way is that if we're spending this money, I don't want to hear the taxpayers coming back and say, oh, it was so-and-so related, and so they chose to target it this way. That's what I'm saying. It's someone not connected with the town at all, so we can be transparent to the taxpayers if we're going to spend this money.
Councillor Rose?
So at this point, the money is just put forward to budget, is that, no, we said to include it, okay. Because we don't really know what $20,000 for sure gets us. That was sort of just, like you say, a number. And I know in any conversations, because I brought this forward a long time ago, I think it was like a company out of Spruce Grove, Emerge Solutions, or some company from some, yeah, I remember a long time ago. And in talking to that lady, Marie Brune, I think is her name, she said that you really have to be specific and you have to know what you want. So I mean, this is a good start, but I think that we'd have to make sure that we were somehow more specific on the RFD, or the, you know, if we're going to request. We have to decide what we want to accomplish. Is it looking at staffing? You know, is it looking at other efficiencies? The fact that recreation is coming, or has come over now, is a good opportunity to look at efficiencies, but you know, they're all over the place, so we have to determine, I think, and be clear as to what it actually is.
Yeah.
And maybe we're going to have to consider a greater amount of money if we want more out of the review, I think.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? All right, we had the motion to put that forward to the 2020 budget deliberations. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to the meeting cancellation, Councillor Gilroy.
I don't mind doing this one. The council approved the request to cancel the December 24th, 2019 regular meeting of council and direct administration to advertise the cancellation.
I don't think we'll have any objections to this motion.
I don't know.
But I'll throw it out there if anybody's got a question. All right.
Chris may want to be here.
Yeah. I didn't think I'd get objections to this one. All those in favor? Carried. We'll go on to 9.1 Friendship Center Elders Banquet. Councillor Gilroy.
The council give a financial donation in the amount of $500 to the High Prairie Friendship Center for the 39th anniversary. I believe it's an elders banquet because it doesn't say it in the option there, but yeah, the elders banquet.
All right. Any discussions? Councillor Danaka.
And is this coming out of the sponsorship account? Okay.
Any other questions, comments on this topic? Don't see any. All those in favor? Opposed? And you didn't tell us why. Just a surprise there. Okay. Moving on to the Canadian and Western Canadian Classics sponsorship for the horseshoe tournaments. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Rose.
The council approved the request for funding from the 2019 operating budget in the amount of $3,000 to the High Prairie Horseshoe Club to host the championship. But I want to say to be used for facilities. So I didn't want to add the GL. Because they want facilities, right?
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I think they had approached both councils and asked for forgiveness of any fees regarding the facilities, so.
So this is over and above.
This is over and above that, yeah.
Okay, do we have any idea of what their budget is and how much we're contributing towards running this and what the others are putting in?
I believe Ray said he was going to the county and asking them for the same amounts. So he didn't really indicate too much about the budget, just that they were starting to fundraise now, and I don't know what he needed, like $20,000 or something. because it's a big tournament and they're using both facilities, so. And then they're having a banquet, and they're trying to raise money, so they do have some money in their account. They're still fundraising, so.
So it went from the Western, now they're doing the Western and the Canadian.
And the Canadian, yeah.
On the same weekends, right?
He's gonna go get it.
Councillor Gilroy.
I noticed that we are looking at $3,000. I'm looking at the letter here, and if it says, paragraph 3, we are requesting the town of High Prairie to set aside in the 2020 budget a donation of $3,000 for the Canadian Championship and a $2,000 donation to the Western Canadian Classic. If we approve one, are we still going to be approached later on for the second one? Or are we?
Two different motions.
Okay, but I'm saying if we only approve 3,000, are they going to come back later and then ask us for the extra money? Just
Okay, we'll turn it over to.
There is money still remaining under that GL number. That's why I had suggested the motion to pay both of them out of that, and then carrying on for the 2020 budget, we start anew again. So that was the reasoning behind that. Council can do it either way you want, but they'll be back. I just thought we'd deal with them both, and if that was council's wish, entirely up to you guys.
I didn't really finish it, actually. Okay, so conversation.
Yeah.
My motion will just be what administration's recommended action. Now, can I do the and, or do you want one and then the other?
We could probably do two different motions.
Yeah. So I'll just do the first one.
Okay.
So it'll come out of sponsorships if that's it.
Councillor Stenhouse.
This is kind of a budget question, but when was the last time that we looked at our sponsorship fund, as in reducing it?
Well, we've reduced it, I know, since we've been on council a few times. It's gone down from what we started with. I don't know the actual amounts, maybe you remember, Brian, but it was higher.
It's $30,000.
Yeah, it's at 30,000 now.
And I think we've, as council, have given donations or whatever, a little over $15,000 as of today.
So my question is, if we approve it out of the 2019 budget, we'd be giving them the money now in this fiscal year, right? Yeah. So they'd be holding on to it for, yeah. Councillor, are you done, Councillor? Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
I'm in favor of giving the money, but I think I'd rather have it out of the 2020 budget personally, because I guess it sounds strange, but any money saved this year that we can put towards the any of our extra expenses, I think I'd rather look at that and just keep it in the year in which it's asked. So I mean, I'm still looking at maybe even the whole 5,000 if that's what you want, but next year's budget, not this year's, because all the extra money really goes towards some of our. My mind's thinking here. Goes towards someone we're trying to put aside for replacement items, things like that. So I'd rather just have an idea of what we actually spent in 2019 for 2019 projects.
Okay.
Another comment I just want to make about the facilities, and I know this came to us and it was kind of confusing because it's when I'm talking us as far as the recreation board a couple different times, right? And it had come to the table before recreation came over, and then it's come since, and it's been a bit confusing. The policy for recreation, there is a policy on what they give for each user groups and nonprofits. Like there's a couple different steps, and this one, if we've approved it, Brian, and I don't actually remember approving like no cost, that's a fairly big donation already. So we need to consider that. That's bigger than we give most hockey teams or provincial hockey teams and stuff like that, when they come over, there's and I can't remember the formula, but there is a rate reduction that we give. I think we give $1,000 off the top, and then there's a rate reduction for their tournament. But so we should be careful about the message, because then there'll be another. I mean, I think that it's a great opportunity to showcase the community, and he's going to be, you know, to have this event in the community, but $5,000 from us, $5,000 from the county, and free facilities without even for sure having a budget. I don't know if I'm 100% comfortable yet with. I'd like to see what the cost of operating. We looked at the native provincials, and we were often asking them about, you know, we're trying to make a donation and support them. Part of the reason why we step out of too much of a donation there is because we know it's a money tournament. We know that they give away money at the end of the tournament to the winning hockey teams, right? So is that all we're doing is funding that? And I don't even know here, is this a money tournament? Are we giving it, is that what the prizes are, or is it just more of a trophy winning thing? Without seeing the budget, I just don't know where the money's going to.
Good point. We do have a policy about budgets being attached with a certain amount of ask.
Yeah, and I would echo some of that. Is you know, is it just being used to feed everybody, or is it the prize money going up? What's the money going to be used for? Yeah. But
and I think that Ray has really done his homework well. Clearly, he's been able to impress the organization itself from a national level and from a regional level, which I knew nothing about it. And now we have this opportunity to showcase our town, which we've always been asking for, $5,000 to get that kind of exposure, pretty cheap. We'll have people from all over Canada coming to this little town. That's pretty cool.
Councillor Danaka.
I think this is a valuable event to spend money on, but I can't approve this without some type of a budget. We ask other organizations when the powwow comes, we ask them, they submit a budget saying, you know, this is our budget, this is what this is going to be used for. So I'd like to see that we treat all requests the same, and I would like to see a budget from Ray or him, the board or whatever, saying how is your money allotted before I say, yeah, go ahead.
So then,
Councillor Long.
So then, as a council, I'm hearing that we're in favor, but we'd like to see the budget attached, and so we could send a message out to Ray, let him know, give us your budget, let's see what. I don't care if the money's going for food or whatever. I mean, if it's going for food, that's great because it's being spent here locally. So, but as for prize money, I have no idea. We can put that rider on there saying these funds will not be used for that purpose. And that'd be fine, I think.
Councillor Gilroy?
Maybe a little better would be if we're all in favor of this because it's a good economic thing. If we put it into the 2020 budget, it gives time for the rec department to come up, tell us what is expected, which was Councillor Rose's concern. And there's also the concern about the budget. And then we can actually get everything together. So when we look at the budget, we can then make a final decision on the amount of money, as opposed to having them resubmit later. So that's why it would be good as well to make it the 2020 budget consideration. And we already have money in there for something in the 2020. So.
Yeah. See, I would argue if we can do it this year, it would be better this year, just because with all of the provincial cutbacks, next year's budget is going to be much tighter. We're not going to have the same room that we might have this year. So if we can take this out of this year and save that money for, because we're going to be tight next year, I'd rather do it this year. That's my thinking. Did you have your hand up, or just your fingers on the button? You're ready. Yeah, she's ready, but
well, I will ask. I was just going to ask Mr. Martinson what budget he wanted it out of, but you talked about it being the 2019. That's why you wanted it just to come out to 2019? And do you think there's a chance of being able to quickly get a look at a budget and then just have Ray submit?
You could make the motion subject to him providing a budget approved by council.
Well, that doesn't mean that we're gonna like the budget, though. I mean, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to, I mean, yeah, we could.
But then it still has to come back before council if it's subject to our approval.
Not necessarily, like what Mr. Martinson's saying is not necessarily make it subject to approval, just subject to him submitting the budget, because he hasn't gone through the process, and Councillor Tanaka made that point that we do have a process.
Subject to council's approval, though, is what Mr. Martinson just said.
Oh, I thought he just submitting a budget. Yeah, I agree. If we get the opportunity to take a look at the budget, I think that we should
So,
see what its costs are.
yeah, what I'm hearing is perhaps if we can get a budget for next meeting, and we could bring this back up and make a decision. Is that sort of what I'm hearing from everyone? Yeah, I see nods.
Yep.
Okay.
Gives us a chance to look it over at home, and then I would hate for us to micromanage it. I mean,
no,
they clearly know what they need, and
yeah.
I think not having it as first and prize money is fairly important to add on to. But other than that, your boots.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We want to make a different motion, but perhaps we can vote on the first motion, and then we can make a second motion. So we'll start with the first motion was to approve the funds. All those in favor?
That was just the first part, just the 3,000.
Yes. And you're not in favor?
No, I'm
No,
in favor.
okay.
Did we already?
No, we're saying, okay, you're the
He's
only.
on his own yet.
Well, what we're asking is, do you want to approve it without seeing the budget? So, and I'm hearing that we don't, so I'm thinking that we're going to defeat
I think
this
Victim still wants
motion.
to vote on it.
Yeah, well, no, that's fine. That's what we need to do is vote on it.
Amendment?
Well, this is a big change, so we're just going to vote and kill it, is what I'm hearing. So, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that motion is defeated. A new motion? I see Councillor Long's thinking, so that works.
That council approved the request for funding from the 2019 operating budget in the amount of $3,000 to the High Prairie Horseshoe Club to host the Canadian Championship to be taken out of GL, blah, blah, blah.
With the condition that.
With the condition of, thank you, Debbie, with the condition of seeing a budget, reviewing a budget.
Okay, well, the way I'm hearing, all he has to do is give us any kind of a budget and it's approved.
Perfect.
Yeah, or do we want to look at the budget before we make
I'd
an
like to see the
approval?
budget.
We're gonna.
Just say subject to approving the budget.
We're just gonna approve it anyway, but
Yeah, well,
I guess motion made more sense than if we're.
what I guess I'm hearing what you're saying, Michael, is you're just saying he can give us any kind of a budget and we've already approved it, you just give us the paperwork after. I'm thinking that he gives us the budget and then we'll decide.
So if it's subject to approval, then it can come back next meeting, because we actually put it that way. It would be better so we can actually see it and approve it.
And I'm sure short of any big money prizes that a budget will be approved, so.
Well, and it'd be good to know if we're approving anything with the arena rental too, and what the total cost to the town would be. We don't know that, right?
Well,
So I'd like to know that too, a little bit.
I don't think you need a motion. We'll just bring it back.
Okay.
Administration, just bring it back.
You'll just bring it
Council,
back.
Yeah, and I'll give more information on it. Right.
okay,
Okay, so do you want to withdraw your motion?
withdraw.
Okay, so we'll get it come back to our next meeting with a budget and some more information. Perfect. And I think everybody's in favor of it. You just follow the same protocols, yeah. Oh, another funding request. Golf club funding. Councillor Rose?
The council approved funding for the High Prairie and District Golf Club for 2 years, 2020 and 2021, in the amount of $15,000 per year.
Councillor Gilroy?
As much as it sounds like a good idea, I'd be more comfortable if they took out another loan and we did what we're doing right now, which is, back them on it. Because at the same time, I believe that we received some emails from our mayor that have suggested that some of our funding will be drastically cut with some of the changes. So I'm not sure we really have the funds to invest $15,000 a year for the next 2 years, or invest $30,000 in the golf course.
Okay, any other comments on that? I'll give you my thought. Oh, go ahead, you go ahead, Brian.
That is a town facility. The town does own that out there. It's run similarly like the curling club. We own the building, but the curling club runs the curling. So if council so wishes, and the reason I only put it for 2 years is because that's your guys' term here. I didn't want to commit any farther down the road. That would be the next council coming in. They had requested 5 years, I believe it was, so at one time. So that's why I made the recommendation for $15,000. And we had discussed this earlier, and it'll be coming up again later on. So funding part.
My thinking is the golf club and the golf course is a valuable resource for our region, and they're hurting, they need help, and if we can, between us and the county, ante in to help a little bit, that's great, because it keeps a valuable resource for $15,000 isn't bad. So I'm all right with that. The only thing I would like is for them to report back to us on how the funds are getting used, right? Like just an idea of on how it's going and what they're using the funds for.
They have, in their indication, talking to Larry Greer, they have approached Big Lakes County and also asked them for $15,000. And what they're going to use the $30,000 for, if approved by both council, is for matching funding for grants. So they're going to be going after a $60,000 grant for a replacement of major stuff like the bridges and whatever. So they're looking at equipment and bridges, and that's what they're looking at for.
And I think that's great, and that's a good use of our funds. It's doubling the funds, and they're going to do that. And that's what I would like to see it, but I would like to make sure that they're not just getting the money and going, okay, good, we don't have to do any work now. But that's what I want him to sort of report back on how the funds are used. That's what I was thinking, but who had it? Was you? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we have a group that runs it as volunteers. This is the most affordable way to run this facility, and I think minimally, because, well, one, it's a town facility, and that if we can't, if we don't invest in it, it's going to just become less of an asset. And right now, it's a pretty significant asset in the area. It is an attraction piece as well, and if it doesn't work with having a group looking after it and supporting them financially, it will become a town facility, and it will be staff that will be, or we won't have a golf course, right? So I think that we should seriously look at supporting them.
Okay, any other comments on this one? Councillor Stenhouse.
So in this motion, are they going to provide, as you asked, like a spreadsheet as to where they're spending the money? Or we're just going to...
So I guess that would be a question for Brian. Did you have an answer for that? On Councillor Stenhouse questions? Would they provide us with a statement back on how they use the money, or a short presentation on it?
Request that as council.
Okay. Sure. So perhaps we should add that to the motion. And I would like to see it. I don't know how the rest feel. But, yeah.
We're asking the same thing of the horseshoe and everybody else, that's $30,000. You know, we gotta treat everyone equally.
Okay, so I'm hearing that too. Okay, so the motion was made by Councilor Rose. Would you add that?
So to add that,
Would you want any
what do we want to add? Just that they will provide us
Welcome to 1920.
summary of how the funds were used?
a summary about, you got that?
Were used or are going to be used?
That they're going to be used, right?
We didn't stick this in because it's so big, and then that's where to bring it up.
Oh, so this might be a sort of an answer.
Projection for 4 years. Deficit.
So they're spending about $90,000 a year, 140, 98.
Yeah, it goes up or down depending on what needs to be done, eh? But anywhere from 90 to 140.
So, and again, these are all just guesstimates. It's not nothing written in stone.
But then we don't need to amend the motion if everybody's happy with that.
Yeah.
Well, it gives a list of capital projects that they're looking at doing each year. And our $15,000 will just be part of
The grant.
140, 90, and $98,000 of the project.
Councillor Gilroy?
If I'm looking at this correctly though, without our grants, they run a deficit. And then they're depending upon our grants and matching grants to actually finally make a profit on all these things. What happens if they don't get the matching grants? Because they've got large numbers here for matching grants here.
They won't be able to do some of the projects at all.
Well, once again, the
Drastically, some of the projects.
I guess my only thing is I just hope that they are using the money for the matching grants and able to get them, as opposed to just going, okay, now we got the money, we don't have to do any extra work, and well, let's just use that money up, and if we need more, we'll go back to the town and the county. That was my only thinking, is have them come back to us and say, yep, this is how we use the money. We built, like we had on our list, we built the septic tanks, we put the bridges in, we got a rough mower and a power cart, and we were able to do that because we got the 30,000 and the 60,000 in matching grants. I'd be thrilled to death if they did all of that. I'd be happy.
Do we want to just amend the motion to say that the money is for capital projects only, and that they need to report back to us annually on what they did with the funds? Because they're not going to know if they're getting the matching grants now. They're not going to know, you know.
Yeah.
But we can stipulate that the funds are for those capital projects, as many as they can get done, I guess. And our $15,000 isn't going to go very far, right?
No. Yeah, I'm good with that. It'll put in a septic tank. That's
Put in a
important.
septic tank, yeah.
Yeah. And I'd just like to know whether or not they were getting the grants, right? Have they doing the work?
We should get a report.
Yeah, so.
So they're back to 0 2 years now with the bonus.
We adding that?
So I made the motion, so I will add that it be used for capital projects with annual reporting back to council.
Okay, so we've got a motion that says council will approve funding for 2 years in the amount of $15,000 per year to be used for capital, and that they must report back to council annually. We're all right with that? Everybody understands the vote? All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried still. All right. Where are we at? CAOs, and we better take a break. I know, yeah. I was just wondering.
That's a good name.
Yeah.